And good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this edition here of the Metal Steel Podcast. Or, of course, yours truly, Charles Project Richie, as we'll be watching the 2024 NFL Draft. It'll be taking place this year in the Motor City in Detroit, which be shown at the downtown area and award-winning campus, Marcius Park and Hart Plaza. Steelers will enter this year's draft for four picks in the top 100. Back-to-back years for the first time since 2018 was the last time they had four in the top 100. And it's usually an exciting time around this time right now. Steelers did a good job checking their boxes off in free agency, make some key signings right now. And here we are, to say the least. And we'll see how much the all-in mentality works this year around under Art Rooney, Omar Khan behind, still pulling for Mike Tomlin. Yet to see him get a contract extension, but we'll keep an eye out that time. Despite his support, he still has expressed frustration with still losing in the playoffs. Something to keep an eye on for that. But anyway, I'd like to hear your thoughts on this day right now as we get ready to find out tonight, as we are just a few hours away. The draft is set to kick off at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, as we'll be looking at this event right here going on. And let's recap some of the key noticeable signings. I mean, the biggest bombshell being dropped, of course, and really seemed like it was gaining much traction as 2023 season ended, and due to the miraculous relationship with Russell Wilson, Sean Payton trying to get this guy to take a pay cut going into the 2024 season with an injury guarantee. They ended up cutting him. He's became available, and the Steelers did assign him officially on Sunday, March 10th, at the vet minimum to a $1.21 million contract with the Steelers. Shortly after that, throughout later in the week, there was, according to Gerry Dulac, and rumblings across X.com, formerly Twitter, how Gerry Dulac even pointed to how poorly Kenny Pickett was handling the situation. Russell Wilson was supposed to be one of the motivations for Kenny Pickett, who the Steelers were still looking to have some optimism in him going into his third year, still get to the next level where he need to be improving better as a solid quarterback. Granted, he was not in the rosiest of situations, being in Matt Canada's offense for the past 2 years, but seriously rocked the cradle for him big time, as far as like not being happy. It turned into a real big drama queen behind the scenes, to be quite frankly honest here, and pretty much led to a quick divorce, and where the Steelers sent him to the Philadelphia Eagles, where they got their 98th overall pick in this year's draft. And basically, I mean, the Eagles for this year's draft, in return from the Steelers, we take a look at it going into this year. I mean, they do get Kenny Pickett, I mean, on this team, but they also get the Steelers' fourth round, 120th overall. So with acquiring the Eagles' compensatory pick at 98th, that makes it officially 4 picks in the top 100. The Eagles have 8 picks in this year's draft, 3 in the top 100. But we'll be finding out on Friday, as remember, today will be the first round, opening night. And then, of course, Friday be rounds 2 through 3. Then you'll be having the remaining rounds on Saturday, 4 through 7. Something to keep an eye on right there. But anyway, speaking of some interesting news going into here too, when the Steelers did pick up Justin Fields right there, still questions as to whether or not they were going to be able to pick up his 5th-year option, and the deadline, which was coming up. Steelers apparently, which was anticipated, declined it. They are not expected to pick up his 5th-year option. According to Adam Schefter, that means Fields had to become a free agent following this season. Fields, who was due to make just over $25 million on the tag for this year, which is a real pricier option. There was also reports going into this, too, that the Steelers just do a much cheaper route, where they'll sign him to a 1-year deal at some point, 1-year extension pretty much and just keep him that way. But there was lots of talks about a robust trade for Fields this offseason with several teams in need of a new quarterback. That market never materialized. But when you look at other teams that opted for other quarterbacks, like Kirk Cousins, who went over to the Atlanta Falcons as Dirty Birds, Sam Darnold to the Vikings, Sam Howell, who's now a Seattle Seahawk, and Gardner Minshew left from the Colts to the Vegas Raiders before Fields found his new home, just to name a few. Bears did trade up for him 3 years ago, giving him some significant draft capital, but now Fields will be on the clear reclamation program in Pittsburgh. And that's going to be the true $1 million question this year. I mean, who's going to be that quarterback of the future? I mean, for right now, before bringing in Justin Fields, I mean, they seem pretty confident they're going to be supporting him as a starter heading into this year. But at the same time, too, I mean, Mike Tomlin's, who still gave him the credit cachet as being the top one quarterback for right now due to his resume and his experience and his winning caliber. I mean, for right now, I mean, it makes all the sense in the world, but still leaving the door open to see how Justin Fields looks through mini camps, training camp, and preseason, of course. But that's going to be the interesting question. Whose offense will this really be? Will Russell Wilson have a resurging year? Will he be able to follow up last year? Because last year he had a pretty decent season where he was able to like get a little bit of improve back. I mean, Sean Payton did bring the best out of him that year. Still not the rosiest of relationships they had. But I mean, Russell Wilson, who's been a year before that, a guy who's well famously known for having his own training facility, his own room, his own private coaches, and his study session, pretty much distancing himself from the team. I mean, he did throw for lesser passing yards this year, but his touchdown to interception ratio did improve significantly under Peyton. I mean, they did a real good job taking care of the ball last year, 26 touchdowns to 8 picks. But here we are right now. We're going to see whose offense this will eventually become. I still think for this year it'll be Russell Wilson. I'm not too sure about the Justin Fields acquisition work now. I really feel like that's going to be a big swing and a miss for the Steelers this year, but only time will tell on that. Now, going to this year right now, as we look at the draft, like I mentioned, Gerry Dulac was saying, and one of his chants he usually has every Tuesday with or Wednesdays, excuse me, I should say, with his fans on the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. Feel free to subscribe if you can. Basically, he was saying the wide receiver position is deep. But he also did say you better get a starter when you have a chance. You get the type of receiver they need or want on the second or third in the second or third round. Now, have the Steelers had any discussions about flipping their tackles? Jones left tackle and more the right tackle. That was one question that was asked in the chat. Dulac did say no. The only discussion is trying to move Jones to left tackle at some point soon, which is currently being occupied by Dan Moore Jr. Dan Moore, don't forget, this past season did feel that Broderick Jones, who the Steelers selected at 20th last year, was more suited for right tackle than anything. He just felt like that was his natural position for him. And here we are right now. I mean, that's gonna be the plan. See how he's able to transition to it. Because I'll be honest with you, like last year's draft, I think it was a pretty successful draft so far. I mean, when you look at, I mean 14th. Excuse me, the Steelers got Broderick Jones at 14th, not 20th. And I believe they trade up with the Patriots of all teams to get in there. But anyway, here we are right now. I mean, you look at, their first two picks. I mean, arguably two first-round picks last year. Night one, of course, they did get Broderick out of Georgia. Then to open up the second round, we could still argue it was an extra first-round pick. They selected Joey Porter Jr. of Penn State. And I think both of those guys did really well. And you look at the other people on here, some notable signs right here. I mean, you look at probably like Nick Herbig right there. The guy who could be groomed to be a nice edge rusher in the making right here. and maybe Darnell Washington, see how much more time like he gets to like sharpen up his skill set. But here we are right now, this year's draft. I'd like to hear your thoughts. Once again, you can follow me on X at MetaSteelCGR and on Instagram at MetaSteel Nation right here. And I'll be sporting tonight. Just ordered this from Hugo Boss right before the Super Bowl. Just got a little after Hugo Boss Steelers long sleeve sweater. I'll be wearing that for the festivities in tonight's draft as we go and take a look at more of it. Anyway, like I said, I want to hear your thoughts on this right now. Also, Gerry Dulac did mention too in his chats that they already that one of the questions about can the Steelers become a competitive playoff team by just additions through the draft? But or do you also think there'll need to be a trade or two? At the latter, what trade pickup do you see as most likely? His response was, Tahiri thinks they are better now than they were a year ago after the offseason moves they made. The two quarterbacks we just mentioned, Wilson and Fields. You also got former middle linebacker of the Ravens, Patrick Queen, quarterback Dante Jackson, and even strong safety Deshaun Elliott. But they need to draft a starting center and get another receiver. If they're making a trade, it'll be for a wide receiver. That'll be something to keep an eye on for that. And I 110% agree with Gerry Dulac on that. But I mean, for right now, as we take a look at the current roster right here for the Steelers going into this year, according to our lads right now, with nothing being set. But here's how we look currently right now in the off season before things get straightened out at the end of the preseason, before we start the regular season, just be Labor Day weekend. I mean, receivers, I mean, right now you got George Pickens and Van Jefferson as your left and right wing receiver. And you got Quez Watkins. Now, one would think is they're going to get a receiver. You probably need a noticeable upgrade at slot receiver. Now, you got Kelvin Austin in there, who I thought did pretty well last year with some of his contributions right there. But I think that's definitely something not off the table right there, where they would need to take a little extra look at. That was definitely Omar Khan's specialty right there, was drafting a lot of decent receivers, Pro Bowl receivers. I mean, that should be eventually like Hall of Famers right there. You think of Antonio Brown, the recent memory. I mean, he was selected back in 2010, and he was drafted out of let's see, back in 2010, sixth round pick out of Central Michigan, 195th overall. A guy who was able to make seven Pro Bowls, four All Pros, and earning a Super Bowl ring with Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers right there. Of course, so too, when you speak of a center right now for the Steelers going into this draft right now, I mean, the last time they have taken a center with their first pick in the first round, you have to go back as far as 2010. That was with Marquise Pouncey, who, I mean, definitely had a hell of a career right here with the Steelers, despite Mike Tomlin, who regrets not getting a Super Bowl ring for. I mean, when he just feels bad that he couldn't win one for. But all in all, I mean, you look at Pouncey and you want to know when's the last time they drafted a center. I mean, that high. I mean, in the draft, it's been a really long time for them. Speaking of which, and this is definitely something you look at for their history. I mean, how they're just trying to build with Arthur Smith, trying to have this aggressive run style attack, which was classic Steelers football. See if they worked in today's game. But when you also look at it too, I mean, the last high center they ever took in the draft was Dermari Dawson back in 1988, which would have been 36 years ago. He was selected 44th overall, made 7 Pro Bowls, 6 All Pros, Lawson was one and only Super Bowl back in '95 versus Dallas Cowboys in Super Bowl 30 in Phoenix right there. But outside of that, you probably had to go like the next closest one to him. Was Kendrick Green, who was selected 87th overall, which was 3 years ago. That same offseason that Marquise Pouncey retired shortly after they got bounced out of the playoffs by the Cleveland Browns. Interesting notes to share right there. Win now mode, as I mentioned, like starting off this podcast, which has been the theme all season, all the moves they made. Ray Fittipaldo, the question for Khan Steelers as they approach this week's draft, will they change their draft strategy based on the win now mantra that's been formulated over the past several months? Based on some holes remaining on their roster, they might have to tweak their approach at number 20. Steelers enter the draft with stars needed at center, receiver, and slot cornerback. They want to draft a right tackle so they can move Broderick Jones to left tackle, despite desperately need to acquire a young defensive lineman with Cam Hayward entering the final year of his contract and a little quality depth behind him. And yeah, I think right now, if you're gonna groom someone to sit behind a guy like Cam Hayward, I think now's the time right now. Cam Hayward, who, speaking of which, right now, who's going to be on the last year of his contract right now, which he signed his last extension back in 2020, coming up for it, and he's definitely been a true anchor for this team right here. As you look at it, just what he's done over the years, just a true diamond in the rough right here. Who's done everything they asked. And right now, just it'll be a shame if he cannot earn a Super Bowl ring. He's in the final year of his deal right now, with his cap hit for this year being at over $22.4 million at the age of 35 right now. And he signed his last extension, remember, back in 2020, a 4-year, $65.6 million with 17.5 million signing bonus and 26.25 guaranteed, with an average annual salary of 16.4. Say no more. How much he means the leadership to this team right here, and like what he's been through on a day in, weekend, week out basis, game to game. Yellow in practice, what he's done in the community. Walter Payton Man of the Year award, but still, this is a guy right now. If you're going to do a replacement, I think this slam dunk you get that guy this year right now. And I definitely got one in my mock draft, which I'll go over at the conclusion of this. Now, based on the work they've done on the draft circuit, they've been hyper focused on offensive linemen. Of their 35 prospect visits, 14 of them were offensive linemen. Specifically, they brought in the top centers and top right tackles. Now, the Steelers, they did also had 7 cornerbacks and 6 defensive linemen, 6 receivers, and 2 inside linebackers. So you definitely see protection right now is a must. They're definitely getting a lot more auto insurance for their team, if you fair to say. But who among them fit the plug and play needs the Steelers has? One name that pops out, according to Ray Fittipaldo, Amarius Mims, offensive tackle from Georgia, who has been linked to the Steelers throughout the pre-draft process, and for good reason. Now, the Steelers did show a lot of strong interest in him. They've interviewed him at the Combine, attended Georgia's Pro Day, and had him in for a visit. Now, according to Jeremiah of NFL Network, Daniel Jeremiah, they're ready to win right now, according to Jeremiah. I think they kind of tried to form their identity, get back to who they are. They want to run the football. They want to be better up front. I thought the offensive line took steps forward with the additions they had last year. I think they continue to add to it this year. And then they've just got to get some production out of the quarterback position, whether that's Russell Wilson or whether it's Justin Fields. That's going to determine their success. But they don't need to pick somebody for 3 years from now. They're ready to go right now. They need to plug some of those spots among the right tackle prospects that would fit the bill our Oregon State's to Lisa Bulaga, who has a combine grade where he's a starter within 2 years, good start within 2 years. In Washington's Troy Fontenot, also a good start within 2 years. Steelers brought both of them in for visits too. Now, Tyler Guyton, who had 15 career starts at Oklahoma, also visited the Steelers. Tyler's probably somewhere in between Mims, Fuaga, and then Botanu when it comes to his NFL readiness. If the Steelers don't grab a tackle with their pick at number 20, it could be a center. The top three, Graham Burton, Jackson Powers Johnson, and Zach Frazier. Jackson Powers Johnson is definitely a name we've been hearing throughout this, since the combine and throughout free agency leading into the draft. That seems to be a real strong name. Would not be surprised if that's one of their first picks. But that's not one of the guys who I got listed in my mock draft. There isn't a consensus top center, but Barton's size and athletic profile could mean he's the first off the board going into this as we look at it. So, like I said, I'd like to hear what you guys think on this. We'll be sharing. Again, you guys could check out my YouTube channel, Matt Steel Podcast. Feel free to subscribe, share, leave some comments. For all Steelers fans. Now let's get into the mock draft right now for the Steelers. Uh, so here's who I got for their 7 picks. Beginning in the first round, 20th overall, a guy who's listed as a guard, tackle, and center, Graham Barton of Duke. Some pro sources said their teams are projecting Barton to move inside the guard in the NFL. They noticed that Barton plays with short arms that his body type could fit better on the inside. He also has anchor issues with stopping speed to power. Pro valuers say they like how Barton is physical, nasty, and strong in the ground game, but I think it would be a good fit for Arthur Smith's style of offense to work with Mike Tomlin. At left tackle for Duke, Barton was a consistent run blocker and pass protector. He missed time and played through some injuries in 2023. Some sources said they think Barton would be a fabulous center in the NFL. He played some center as a freshman, but might need development in terms of snapping the ball. So that's one guy to keep an eye out for right here. But it looks like you got a guy that's really versatile right here. Almost sounds like similar like Kendrick Green, some of the similarities, but sounds like a much more better version. So I'll go him with their first pick, 20th overall. Second round pick going into this year's draft right here. As we look at it, I'm gonna go defensive tackle Brandon Fisk of Florida State. 2023, Fisk recorded 43 tackles, 6 sacks for the Seminoles. He had 58 tackles, 6 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, and 2 passes batted in 2022 for Western Michigan. He totaled 7.5 sacks over the 3 seasons before that. At the point of attack, Fisk is quick and has some speed to get after the quarterback. However, he needs to get stronger and more stout against the run, better speak. So that's something to keep an eye out for right there. We look at it. Also, let's go into their third round pick, 84th overall. Wide receiver, I got Troy Franklin of Oregon. Franklin was a reliable receiver for Bo Nix in 2023 and turned in a good season for the Ducks. On the year, Franklin caught 8.1 passes for 1,383 yards and 14 touchdowns. He notched 61 catches for 891 yards and 9 scores in 2022. Franklin has height, speed, and explosion, but he is skinny. In the NFL, he could be a Robbie Chosen, formerly Robbie Anderson type receiver as a vertical deep threat, but also wide out with some limitations. Multiple team sources said they have Franklin projected to be day 2 to be drafted tomorrow of the 2024 NFL draft, which should be rounds 2 for 3. I got him at 84th overall in the third round. Now, let's go and see what they'll be able to get for Kenny Pickett, the Kenny Pickett trade, which they received from the Eagles, their compensatory pick, which the Steelers now own for this year. I'm going to go with a versatile inside linebacker and outside linebacker, Nathaniel Watson of Mississippi State. 2023, Watson was a tackling machine for the Bulldogs, recording 137 stops. He made a lot of splash plays as well as notching 10 sacks, 2 forced fumbles, and a reception and 2 passes defended. He played well in 2022, totaling 113 tackles, 6 sacks, and an interception. He's an intriguing linebacker with run defense and pass rush potential. Watson had a solid week at the Senior Bowl. Then we go on to where they'll be drafting in the 4th round, which would be 119th. I'm looking for them to take guard Ladarius Harrison of Michigan, college national football champion right here. Harrison played 4 seasons for Arizona State over 2019 and 2022. Over his time with the Sun Devils, Harrison started 19 games at left guard and 10 at left tackle. After transferring to Michigan, the transfer portal, he started 10 contests at left tackle in 2023. Now, while Harrison has some backup flexibility for guard and tackle, guard would probably be his best fit in the NFL. Then we go on to our final 2 picks, which would be both in the 6th round, no 7th round picks as being projected for this year. Running back, Chase McClellan of Alabama. McClellan was a physical downhill runner for Alabama in 2023, averaging 4.9 yards per carry for 890 yards and 8 touchdowns. He caught 15 passes for 137 yards. In previous seasons, McClellan was a rotational backup. He has potential to contribute as a rotational back in the NFL. Then their last pick of this year's draft, I'm moving for 195th, in the 6th round, tight end Trey Knox of South Carolina. Knox flashed some receiving ability as a tight end for Gamecocks. In 2023, he caught 37 passes for 312 yards and 2 scores. Knox spent the previous 4 seasons at Arkansas, where he started out his career at wide receiver. Knox grew to a tight end and is a project with some upside for the NFL. Just to recap my mock draft, for the first round at 20th, I'm going to go with guard tackle and center Graham Barton of Duke. 2nd round, 51st overall, which would be a nice opportunity to try and get replacement for Cam Hayward. I'm going to go with defensive tackle Brandon Fisk of Florida State. Now, it's arguable this one could wait till the 3rd round, but if you got the opportunity right now, I think you can take care of that. Receivers, I'm not so sure if you want to add one in the 2nd round. You probably wait a little bit on that one, which is why I got the receiver going at a 4th overall in the 3rd round, Troy Franklin of Oregon. Their additional 3rd round compensatory pick acquired from the Eagles at 98th. In and outside linebacker, Nathaniel Watson of Mississippi State. 4th round, 119th, guard Ladarius Harrison of Michigan. 6th round, 178th running back, Jason McClellan of Alabama. And last but not least, their last and final pick of the draft in the 6th round, unless somehow they acquire a 7th round pick throughout this draft, which would be tight end Trey Knox of South Carolina. And that's all we got. Again, you can follow me on my x.com at MansSteelCGR, Instagram at MansSteelNation. And let's see if this year's draft right now could have any type of magic sauce like their famous draft they had 50 years ago, where they will get 4 Hall of Famers in that draft, which is a real special one. 1974, which in large part was orchestrated and structured by Bill Nunn, working with Art Rooney Jr. right there. So, I mean, where they got Lynn Swann, 21st overall in the 1st round, Jack Lambert, 46 overall in the 2nd round, John Stallworth at a 2nd in the 4th round, and last but not least, their final Hall of Famer in that year's draft, Mike Webster, 125th at center. So let's have a good draft. Let's have a good finish to this offseason as we march to minicamp and then training camp, preseason, and we'll see how 2024 looks. As always, leave it. Don't be trolling. Be rolling. Here we go, Steelers. Here we go, Steelers. Here we go. I gone.
Thank you for watching the Man of Steel podcast with your host, Charles Praj Ritchie, here on YouTube. Please make sure to hit that subscribe button. And for all the latest Man of Steel podcast episodes, feel free to download them on Mixcloud, Anchor.fm, and SoundCloud, wherever you get your podcasts.